Hello. Just before I begin, I just want to explain where I come from. People tell me that there's nothing that's going to stop me from expressing my opinion. Just before I left from Canada, I got a virus that paralyzed the right side of my face. So if I'm talking to you, some people say it's because I only have too many left-leaning ideas and the right has collapsed. So please excuse my facial expression and concentrate on what I'm going to try and share with you today. I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to contribute to this vast reflection on the challenges and proposals for another possible world. I am first and foremost a practitioner who has worked for over the past 25 years in building a movement for economic democracy in Quebec, a small French-speaking nation within Canada. I began at a local level as a community organizer, trying to respond to people's social needs, be it access to housing, health services, literacy. But as was the case with many others, we realized that the fundamental problem was the fact that our economic system was creating more and more poverty and social exclusion, even in the richest countries of the planet. And if we did not take head-on the challenge of finding new ways to develop our economy, we would never solve the problems we were facing. This intuition, which was controversial for many militants at the time, because it forced us to deal with economic development and all the compromises that can sometimes entail, has proved in the long run to have been the right choice. Today, the solidarity economy, under a variety of different expressions, depending on the regional or national context, is a growing movement internationally that seeks to change the very fundamental logic on which neoliberal economics has based itself, and to put the economy at the service of human beings and not human beings at the service of the economy. Across the globe, through the solidarity economy, social movements have taken on the challenge of moving from opposition to proposition, not only on broad global issues, but by becoming involved in the day-to-day challenges of producing goods and services, of exchanging these goods and services based on the values of solidarity, equity, democracy, and of course with the greatest respect for our ecosystems and the survival of our planet. The organization I work for, the Chantier de l'économie sociale, is an example of these new forms of social movements. We bring together solidarity economy enterprises, cooperatives, nonprofits, democratic enterprises, social movements, including the union movement, the women's movement, and others, and local development organizations in order to promote and develop the solidarity economy. We work in partnership with similar networks across the world, including the Brazilian Forum on the Solidarity Economy, with whom we have developed a strong partnership over the years. This movement has had to face many complex challenges as it has grown, challenges that involve a wide series of issues, including access to capital, new ways to trade and exchange, new democratic management within enterprises, working conditions, the link between the formal and informal economies, and so on. We have made progress in many parts of the world, and we have begun to build continental and intercontinental networks. I am one of the North American representatives of RIPES, International Network for the Promotion of the Social and Solidarity Economy, that has held two major international events, one in Dakar, Senegal in 2005, and last year in Luxembourg. Our next event will take place in Asia in 2013. Though we are fundamentally a grassroots movement that is growing from the bottom up and is seizing more and more space in the economic realities of our respective countries and continents, we are confronted every step of the way by the issue of political power and state organization. This is no surprise. How can we build a solidarity economy? How can we democratize economic activity without new forms of political power and political organization? I am fully aware that these new forms of political power and organization cannot be rethought only on a national basis. The issue of global governance is a central question, but I will not adventure into the subject. It is not my sphere of expertise. But even if it's an international movement, we succeed in changing the direction of international bodies and international trade agreements, we must still confront the important question of how to organize political power at a national and even local level. For it is that level that many decisions that affect our daily lives are carried out, and it is that level as well that there is a need for fundamental change. This is indeed the challenge that many newly elected progressive governments are struggling with here in Latin America. There is no question that gaining political power is a huge step forward. But the next step, what we do with the political power, how we organize government, is often filled with complex challenges and important stumbling blocks. So in the next few minutes, I'd like to focus my contribution on two questions that we must better understand if we want to move forward. The first question is that of the relationship between the state and civil society in the exercise of political power. This issue, of course, must be put into the context of the overall fight for political democracy. The right to vote in free elections is, as we all know, a fundamental component of democracy, which unfortunately is still inaccessible in too many countries across the planet. Since the First World Social Forum, of course, 10 years ago, some progress has been made, particularly in Eastern Europe and in several Latin American countries where progressive governments have been elected and have implemented important changes to reinforce the democratic functioning of the state. A little bit? Too fast? Slower. Okay. Okay. At the same time, we know that in many countries, and particularly in Africa and Asia, repressive regimes have maintained their control, and in some parts of the globe, regional conflicts are so intense that we are unable to maintain any form of governance. But even in countries with strong democratic traditions, representative democracy has shown its limits. Some limits are linked to the control of the wealthy and powerful over the electoral process. We all know that. But beyond this, I would dare to say that even in North America and Europe, where there is a long tradition of representative democracy is in crisis. Participation in the electoral process has declined in many countries, and cynicism towards the political elite has reached new heights. This is true at the national level in many countries, and even more so at the state or municipal levels of government. People have the impression that no matter who they vote for, nothing changes. And so they seek out other ways to make changes in their lives. This is why, while traditional representative democracy has declined, new forms of democracy have been growing in a wide diversity of forms. Local development based on community empowerment, new forms of local governance, participatory budgets, citizens' assemblies, and other forms of democratic civil society institutions are playing important roles in redefining the exercise of political power. The rise in the number and diversity of associations has opened up new political spaces to intervene in fundamental issues such as the environment, quality of life, the role of culture, and so on. In fact, civil society organizations through local, national, and international networking have become central actors in the exercise of democracy today. There is no question in my mind that the premise on which the First World Social Forum was founded has proven to be true, that civil society has a fundamental and strategic role to play in the exercise of political power. And this is not a temporary phenomenon. It is part of a fundamental transformation of the exercise of political power. I am convinced that there is no going back. Civil society cannot be limited to playing a role of opposition until the taking of power through democratic elections. We are in a historical process in which representative democracy is showing its limits, and the need for the institutionalization of participatory democracy is essential to the futures of our democracies where they exist, and a basis on which to build where democracy is still part of the future.